This is our picture one in Noah Williams and Chad Christinell art slideshow. Artist information. The artist's name was John Nash. He was landscaping around the war, and he was involved with artists and the rifles and like served and that type of stuff. Description is like basically like trench warfare, like in a battlefield, like with guns and set up guns and like the new technology, like machines and like how everything worked, like those type of technologies. It was also a lot of men on the ground dead. Some was tired. They looked like they couldn't walk or stand. Like they had trench foot and was like a lot of them was getting sick, and it was just like it was snowing as well, so it was very cold and for them as they was fighting, so it was hard for them to like maneuver around and just they had a lot going on. We chose this because the living conditions, like how the living conditions was, once again, it connects to trench warfare, and like it was how they fought in the war. They showed us like how trench warfare, like how it kept them. Everybody, like how it was packed and things, because everybody wants to go there because they thought they found new roads and things like that, and it made it easier for resting because also like they had places like they could lay their heads, and it wasn't the most comfortablest, but at the time it was for them because that's where they was able to rest without being like attacked on or anything, or like they would get attacked on, but that's where they got the most rest. This illustrates once again trench warfare because like it was like train tracks, railroad tracks, and it was very narrow. It was like just a straight pathway and like hard concrete all around them and dirt and snow once again, and it was probably a little wet too because of the snow melting, and it had showed like people like feet and like people laid out and stuff because of the trench warfare, like in the trench foot, and people looked like they was getting sick and dying and stuff, so they had planks there to try to prevent things like that, but it didn't work like that because of how bad the conditions was and how they had to constantly move to fight, and they couldn't like get the help they needed. The negative is there's people dead, like people died from this because of the living conditions and war, other armies and things coming in trying to take over because they want a place to stay as well. The mood is like gloomy. The sky symbolizes like the purpose of war wasn't good. Like it wasn't nothing good about war because of the things they went through. So the mood wasn't really like, it was like the mood is like a rainy day, like you don't want to go outside type of day. You just want to stay in the bed all day, but they had to go out to do the things they had to do. It connects because it shows us like a lot what we was working on, what we learned on in class, like trench warfare and stuff like that. And the picture really connects to things like that, trench foot and the sickness and the new technologies and all things net, sort of, because that's like what it showed us in the picture, and that's really what we talked about a lot in class, and we did a lot over going over things like that. And this picture was during the war in the 19s, and it was actually after the first war, I'm pretty sure, and it just wasn't the best conditions that they were in, and that really connects to a lot of things on show. It shows how soldiers were just dropping dead and things like in that nature. And these are the links or the citations.
This is our picture 2 in Noah and Chad's art slideshow. The main information about the artist is her name is Anna Airy, and she focused on mainly munition factory drawings, and she focused on many things to do in the factories. And she was not involved in war, but she was a war artist who got involved within museums and drew for them. A little bit of description about the picture is it is in a munition factory, which was during the World War I, which really helped that nation because they were creating missiles for the war, which would destroy other nations. We also see that women are mainly involved in this picture because all the men are out in the war fighting and the women are preparing the weapons for the men. And lastly, we see some machines, some big machines in the factories that help the women make the missiles. Some important reasons why we picked it is it mainly shows working women, which I just stated, which is not very, well, it is very common because mainly the men are out in the war and they saw the women as people who could make the weapons for them. They didn't think they were as strong as the men to go out and fight in the wars. And also, the living conditions we saw were not that good. They were living on minimum wage, even half wage, and they just were in very tight, congested areas, and many people working in there. This illustrates that the munition factories for war really helped the nations who used them, because if you didn't have these munition factories, then how would you efficiently get your missiles and weapons and ammunition for the soldiers who were helping win the war for you? And it also shows the outfits that the women were wearing. They all had things covering their hair, and they were dressed in gowns to protect themselves from any heat or any hot things going on in the machines and any explosions from the missiles, just to keep them safe, which was very smart back in the day. It also shows that these missiles are not making little destructions in other nations, but they're making really big destructions. And it shows that countries really wanted to get back on these nations who were using these missiles toward the other country, and they felt that they needed to get back because of how much land and destruction they did toward their country. This really shows a negative impact on the war because it shows the bad living conditions, and it shows women getting paid half wage, which is, it's hard to live off half wage, and that is not enough money to provide for your family and get food and other important materials and resources that were used for their families. This has a connection to the war because they used missiles, which we were shown in the picture, and these missiles went to the war. They weren't just made to be made. They were made for a purpose for their nation to succeed in the war. And these are the links that I used.